The kitchen was thick with silence, save for the low creak of the old wooden floorboards beneath Mara's feet. Outside, the wind clawed at the windows, rattling the panes like a restless spirit desperate to be heard. Mara's gaze locked on Eli's rugged face, a map of exhaustion and torment etched deep into his weathered features. His eyes, once steady and determined, now shimmered with the weight of sleepless nights and haunted visions. "Eli," Mara began, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear beneath it. "This farm, this cursed soil, it's killing us. It's killing you, and if you don't stop, it'll kill Sarah, too." Eli shifted, his calloused hands tightening into fists at his sides. "I'm trying, Mara. I'm trying to save this place. It's all I've got left." She took a step closer, the sharp edge of her resolve cutting through the shadows between them. "No, Eli. You're trying to save the land, not us. You're losing yourself in this madness." The weight of her words pressed down on him, heavier than the soil he had tilled since boyhood. He looked away, gaze drifting to the cracked window where the fields stretched endlessly beneath a moon veiled by restless clouds. The cursed earth whispered still, a murmur only he seemed to hear, a hunger that gnawed at his very soul. "I don't have a choice," he muttered. "If I don't feed it, if I don't keep it alive, everything we've built, everything my family's built, will be gone." Mara's eyes glistened with unshed tears, yet her voice held firm. "There's always a choice, Eli. But the longer you ignore it, the deeper this curse will sink its claws into you and into Sarah." A sudden gust howled through the cracked doorframe, sending a cascade of dry leaves skittering across the floor. Mara shivered, not from the cold, but from the dread that settled like a stone in her chest. "You have to decide," she whispered. "Choose us, or choose the cursed land. But you can't have both." Eli's breath hitched, the truth of her ultimatum cut sharper than any blade. He thought of the journal, the bloodied roots, the visions of ancestors lost to the earth's insatiable hunger. He thought of Sarah's pale face, the creeping sickness that no medicine could touch, and most of all, he thought of Marae, her steadfast courage amidst the encroaching darkness. "I don't want to lose you," he confessed, voice breaking. "But this land, it's part of me. It's part of my blood." She stepped forward, placing a trembling hand over his bruised knuckles. "Then fight to save us, Eli, not the soil. Fight to save your family before it's too late." For a long moment, they stood in the flickering candlelight, the chasm between them vast yet bridged by fragile hope. The wind outside softened, as if listening to the fragile truce forged in the heart of the storm. Later, on the porch, Eli cradled a rusted farming tool, the weight of it grounding him even as his mind spun with doubt. Shadows from the twisted branches stretched across the fields, dark fingers beckoning him back into the soil's hungry embrace. Mara's voice echoed in his ears, a lifeline in the chaos. "Choose us, Eli." But the cursed earth was patient, and its hunger unyielding. Alone beneath a sky thick with stars and the promise of rain, Eli faced the cruelest choice yet, the price of survival, the cost of legacy, and the fate of the family he loved. As Mara closed the door behind her, leaving Eli to the night's cold embrace, the silence between them was no longer empty. It was charged with the promise of reckoning and the desperate hope that love could still triumph over darkness. The harvest was coming, and with it, the final reckoning. The conversation between Eli and Mara crackled with tension, each word a fragile thread pulling them toward an uncertain future. Mara's eyes, sharp and unwavering, pierced through Eli's defenses, forcing him to confront not just the cursed land's demands, but the human cost of his obsession. The house seemed to close in around them, the memories of past sacrifices whispering from the shadows. Eli's mind wandered briefly to Reverend Harlan's warning, the cryptic advice to respect the natural order, to beware the price of blood spilled on unforgiving soil. He recalled Tommy Hale's research, the ancient rituals meant to break the curse, and the sickening decline of Sarah, their daughter. His heart ached with the knowledge that every choice carried a weight heavier than the last. Could he walk away from the land that was his heritage, or was he doomed to feed its hunger with the very life of his family? Mara's stand was more than a plea. It was a beacon in the encroaching darkness, a challenge to reclaim their future from the ashes of the past. Eli knew this was only the beginning of a battle that would test every fiber of his being. And as the wind whispered through the fields, carrying the faint scent of earth and decay, Eli braced himself for the storm to come. Night deepened over Black Hollow, the farmhouse standing as a lone sentinel against the encroaching shadows. Inside, Mara's footsteps faded into the quiet rooms, leaving Eli alone on the porch, wrapped in the chill and the weight of his choices. The cursed earth loomed beyond the fields, dark and patient, waiting for its due. He stared into the darkness, the echoes of Mara's ultimatum mingling with the whispers of the soil. Somewhere deep inside, a flicker of defiance sparked a fragile hope that perhaps, against all odds, love could break the cycle. But the land's hunger was not so easily sated, and Eli knew the harvest of ashes was still to come. The sky over Black Hollow darkened with a malevolence that seemed almost sentient. It was as if the heavens themselves had turned their gaze inward, focusing all their fury on the land Eli Grayson had tended his entire life. The low rumble of thunder rolled like a warning drumbeat, echoing through the skeletal branches of the trees that lined the edges of the farm. Shadows lengthened and twisted as the sun vanished behind a wall of roiling black clouds, and the air grew thick with the scent of ozone and damp earth. Eli stood at the center of his fields, the soil beneath his boots trembling and shifting with unnatural vigor. The cursed earth pulsed like a living thing, its decaying roots twisting and writhing just beneath the surface, as if trying to break free. The crops around him, once vibrant and full, now withered and blackened, seemed to shudder under the weight of the gathering storm. Lightning flashed, illuminating the scene in stark, jagged bursts that revealed the sinister shapes of shadows creeping like claws across the fields. His breath came in ragged gasps, heart-pounding not just from the violent weather, but from the knowledge that this storm was no ordinary tempest. It was the land itself, unleashed and enraged, a physical manifestation of the cursed soil's hunger and rage. The whispered voices that had haunted Eli's nights now roared in his ears, a cacophony of ancestral warnings and mournful cries. Inside the farmhouse, Mara Grayson stood by the window, hands clenched tightly around the worn wooden frame. Her sharp eyes scanned the dark horizon, watching the sky crack open with furious lightning, and listening to the howling wind that carried with it an eerie chorus of voices. The glass rattled violently in its panes, and every gust seemed to shake the very bones of the house. Despite the fear that gripped her, Mara's gaze was steady, a pillar of hope amid the chaos, silently willing Eli to hold fast. Back in the fields, Eli's soaked clothes clung to his weathered frame as the rain began to fall in cold, stinging sheets. The cursed earth beneath him seemed to pulse in time with the storm, sending tremors that echoed through his very bones. Suddenly, spectral figures began to coalesce in the swirling dust and mist, ghostly apparitions of his ancestors, their faces etched with sorrow and warning. They whispered in voices that were both distant and intimate, recounting the terrible price their blood had paid to nourish the land. "You cannot fight it, Eli," one ancestor murmured, her eyes hollow yet pleading. "The soil demands its due, always more, always deeper." But Eli's resolve hardened rather than faltered. "I will not let this curse claim my family again," he shouted into the storm, his voice carried away by the howling wind. "I will end this here, now." The cursed earth responded with a violent lurch, roots bursting forth like serpents seeking to ensnare him. Eli dodged and struck with a length of broken branch, severing the grasping tendrils, but the battle was far from over. The storm intensified, thunder crashing like the roar of ancient gods, and the sky seemed to split open as lightning struck the ancient tree that marked the farm's boundary. The tree exploded in a shower of sparks and splinters, the sound deafening and primal. Eli threw back his head and let out a raw, furious roar, defiant challenge to the malevolent force that sought to consume everything he held dear. His every muscle screamed with exhaustion and pain, but his spirit burned brighter than the storm. As the tempest raged, Eli fought not only for his farm, but for the legacy of his family, for the fragile hope that someday the land might grow without the stain of blood. The storm was a brutal test of his sanity and strength, a crucible forged by centuries of sacrifice and suffering. Yet amidst the chaos, a sliver of cold clarity pierced Eli's mind. The battle was not merely against the cursed earth, but against the sins and secrets buried deep within himself and his ancestors. To survive, he would have to face not only the supernatural fury, but the darkness within. Lightning flashed once more, illuminating the twisted battlefield of earth and spirit. Eli stood, battered but unbroken, ready for whatever came next. The storm was far from over, and so was his fight. The wind carried a whisper, barely audible above the thunder. "The harvest is not yet done, Eli Grayson." And with that, the night deepened, swallowing the farm in shadow and uncertainty, leaving Eli to confront the storm's next cruel turn. The sky above Black Hollow was a roiling cauldron of dark, bruised clouds, tearing apart with savage gusts that bent the skeletal trees like twigs. Rain hammered the earth as if the heavens themselves sought to wash away the sins buried beneath the soil. Lightning cracked, jagged and brilliant, illuminating the twisted expanse of Eli Grayson's farm in harsh, fleeting bursts. The cursed earth writhed beneath his boots, black roots snaking through the mud, pulsing with a life that was both grotesque and sorrowful. Eli gripped the ancestral journal with one hand, its worn leather soaked and smeared with dirt and blood, while in the other he held the ritual knife, its blade glinting with a cruel, ancient sharpness. His calloused fingers trembled, but his eyes burned with fierce determination. Tonight was the night he would sever the dark bond that had fed on his family for generations, no matter the cost. "Mara," he shouted over the storm, his voice hoarse but steady, "stay close. It's going to get worse before it gets better." From the edge of the field, Mara's silhouette emerged through the sheets of rain, her sharp eyes unwavering despite the wild wind tearing at her coat. "Eli," she called, voice fierce with love and desperation, "we can get through this, together. You're not alone." Her presence was an anchor in the chaos, a fragile thread of hope woven through the tempest. Eli knelt by the gnarled heart of the cursed soil, the ground pulsing beneath him like a heartbeat twisted by centuries of sacrifice. The malevolent force of the land was alive, sentient, a living memory of blood spilled and promises made in darkness. The roots writhed, reaching upward as if to strangle him, the whispers rising to a fever-pitch anguished cries of ancestors lost, pleading, condemning, warning. His breath hitched as the voices clawed at his mind, memories not his own flooding his senses. A great-grandfather's last scream, soaked in blood. a mother's broken lullaby mingling with the rustle of dead leaves. The unyielding hunger of the soil, demanding more, always more. Eli forced himself to steady his hands, tracing the sigils inked in the journal. The arcane instructions passed down through generations. The ritual was brutaler, sacrifice of blood and spirit to undo the pact that had cursed the land. Yet, the final price was a mystery, whispered only in riddles and half-forgotten prayers. "This ends tonight," Eli muttered, drawing the knife across his palm, crimson droplets mixing with the mud. He pressed the bleeding hand to the earth, feeling the soil drink greedily, the roots tightening like a noose. Suddenly, the storm seemed to roar louder, the wind howling like the wails of the damned. Shadows coalesced into monstrous shapes, twisting in the rain, the angry faces of the cursed earth itself, decayed and eternal. They surged toward Eli, tendrils lashing out, seeking to drag him beneath the surface to join the endless harvest. "No," Mara screamed, stepping forward despite the fury of the elements. She grabbed Eli's arm, grounding him. "You're stronger than this. Remember who you are. Remember us." Her voice broke through the darkness, a beacon in the swirling madness. Eli's grip tightened on the journal, and with a guttural cry, he plunged the knife deep into the soil's pulsing core. A violent shockwave tore through the farm, upending earth and smashing crops, sending Mara sprawling to the wet ground. The cursed roots writhed in agony, shrieking as the bond shattered, the whispers choking into silence. The storm's fury began to ebb, leaving a haunting quiet that pressed down like a shroud. Eli collapsed beside Mara, his body trembling from exhaustion and pain. The farm lay in ruined fields, torn asunder, crops blackened and broken, the land scarred by the violent release, yet the oppressive hunger was gone. Tears mixed with rain on Mara's face as she reached for Eli, their hands clasping tightly in the stillness. "It's over," she whispered, though the price was etched deep in their souls. Eli's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the first frail light of dawn fought through the dissipating storm clouds. The nightmare had ended, but the cost was a harvest of Ash's loss, sorrow, and a legacy forever altered. In that fragile moment between night and day, Eli understood the truth. Some debts could be paid, but shadows always lingered, and the land, once cursed, would remember. Yet, as the sun rose over Black Hollow, a tentative hope took root alongside the ruin. For the first time in generations, the soil lay fallow but free. The cycle was broken, but the story was far from over. And Eli Grayson, battered and haunted, would be ready for whatever came next. The dawn crept slowly over Black Hollow, a muted grey light filtering through thick clouds that hung low over the ravaged landscape. Eli Grayson stood motionless at the edge of what had once been the heart of his family's farm, the barn. Now, it was little more than a skeleton, splintered wood jutting erratically into the damp air, metal sheeting twisted and curled like burnt parchment. The acrid scent of charred timber and wet earth mingled, a pungent reminder of the storm's fury. His calloused hands clenched at his sides, knuckles white beneath dirt-streaked skin. Somewhere beyond the desolation, a lone crow cried out, its harsh call echoing across the broken fields. Eli's eyes traced the jagged lines of destruction, each shard of wood and twisted nail a testament to the price paid. The soil beneath his boots was sodden and cracked in places. The black earth that had once yielded life, now a barren wasteland. He could still feel the echoes of the ritual, the desperate chants, the blood spilled in sacrifice, the violent clash of supernatural forces that had rent the night asunder. The storm had passed, but it left behind a silence so thick it pressed against his ears. Behind him, footsteps approached softly. Mara's presence was steady, unwavering as always, but her face was drawn tight with grief. She knelt by a scorched patch in the field, fingers sifting gently through the cracked soil. The faint breeze carried the scent of smoke and damp leaves, and the distant cawing of crows seemed to mourn with them. Mara's sharp eyes glistened with unshed tears as she whispered, "This is what it cost us, Eli, everything." Eli knelt beside her, the weight of the moment settling between them like a heavy shroud. "We broke it," he said quietly. "The curse is broken." "But at what price?" Mara looked up, meeting his gaze. "We're alive," she said, "and that's what matters." Inside the battered farmhouse, remnants of their life together lay scattered beneath the remnants of a ceiling that had once sheltered their dreams. Dust motes danced in the flickering candlelight, casting long, trembling shadows across the cracked wooden floor. Eli and Mara sat close, sharing a sparse meal of stale bread and watered-down coffee, their hands occasionally brushing, seeking comfort in contact. The silence between them was thick with unspoken fears and memories. Eli's eyes were haunted, reflecting visions of ancestors who had sacrificed themselves to feed the cursed earth faces, twisted in agony, voices whispering from beyond the grave. The burden of legacy pressed heavily on his shoulders. The knowledge that the cycle of blood and sacrifice had finally been shattered, but not without leaving scars that might never fully heal. "Do you think it's truly over?" Mara's voice trembled. Eli swallowed hard, searching for an answer beyond the shadows. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we have to believe it is. We have to find hope in the ashes." Outside, the late afternoon sun fought its way through the broken windows, casting long melancholy shadows across the empty fields. Eli stood again, drawn to the silence of the land that once thrived beneath his hands. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of earth and rain-soaked timber, but the life that had once pulsed through Black Hollow seemed to hold its breath. As he gazed out across the fallow fields, memories of sacrifice and relentless hunger churned in his mind. The cursed soil had demanded so much blood, pain, loss, yet in breaking the cycle, they had reclaimed something precious, a chance to live unshackled by the past. Still, the path ahead was uncertain. The farm lay in ruins, and the scars of the night lingered like ghosts in the corners of his vision. Eli's heart ached with a fierce mixture of sorrow and reluctant resolve. The nightmare might be ended, but the shadows it cast would follow them for years to come. He turned back toward the house, Mara waiting patiently. Together, they would face the long road of rebuilding the soil, their family, and themselves. And though the harvest would be of ashes for now, perhaps one day new seeds could take root in the broken earth. But for tonight, they would simply be survivors, haunted, weary, and fragile, yet unbroken. The sky was a bruised canvas of oranges and purples as Eli Grayson sat on the splintered porch steps of the farmhouse. The ruined fields of Black Hollow stretched out before him, a vast expanse of fallow earth cracked and dry, the remnants of what had once been his family's lifeblood. The air was thick with the smell of ash and earth, a lingering perfume of destruction and renewal that clung to his senses. The harvest was over, but the echoes of what had transpired during that dreadful time haunted the soil, and Eli could feel it in every breath he drew. He rested his elbows on his knees, his calloused hands clasped loosely together, fingers trembling slightly from exhaustion and the weight of memory. The curse that had gripped his family for generations was broken, or so he hoped. The storm that had ravaged the farm, the desperate ritual he had performed in the eye of that tempest, had severed the unholy bond between blood and soil. The land no longer demanded sacrifice. but the price paid was etched deep into the scars of his heart. Behind him, the farmhouse creaked softly. Mara's steady footsteps made their way across the wooden floor, the faint glow of the fireplace casting flickering shadows that danced like restless spirits on the peeling wallpaper. She moved with quiet purpose, tending to the hearth as if coaxing warmth into the cold, broken remnants of their life. Eli could see the tight lines around her mouth, the resilience in her sharp eyes, and the lingering sorrow that neither of them spoke aloud. "You're still out here," Mara said softly, crossing the threshold onto the porch. Her voice was a balm against the gathering night. "You've been sitting here for hours." Eli nodded, turning to meet her gaze. "I can't seem to leave it behind." She joined him on the steps, close but not touching, sharing the silence that stretched between them like a fragile thread. "The curse is over," she whispered, "but the past, it's not so easy to bury." He swallowed hard, the old family journal heavy in his coat pocket. It was worn, the leather cracked and faded, ink smeared in places from years of handling and tears. The cryptic entries, the blood-pact, the sacrifices of ancestors long gone of it, weighed on him like a stone. "I opened it again today," Eli confessed, reading their words, their fear, their hope. "It's like they're still here, whispering through the pages." Mara reached out, her hand brushing his. "We carry their legacy, Eli, but we don't have to be chained to their mistakes." A sudden rumble of distant thunder broke the stillness, a reminder of the storms that had torn through Black Hollow before. Eli looked up as dark clouds gathered, the wind picking up and rustling the broken stalks in the fields like the sighs of lost souls. The cursed earth was silent now, but the whispers seemed to rise again on the breeze. Faint voices carried through the chill. He shivered, more from the weight of memory than the cold. "Do you think it's truly over?" Mara's eyes met his, steady and unyielding. "I don't know, but whatever comes, we face it together." As night fell, Eli remained seated, the journal resting on his lap. He traced the faded ink with trembling fingers, feeling the pulse of generations past beneath the fragile paper. The curse had been broken, but the emotional wounds, the guilt, the loss, the relentless hunger of the earth was slow to heal. They lingered like shadows, waiting to reclaim their hold. In the quiet of the night, Eli made a vow. He would protect his family, his land, and the fragile peace they had won. But he would do so with eyes wide open, never forgetting the price of survival and the dark hunger that once fed the fields. The land might lie fallow now, but the echoes of the past would forever resonate beneath the surface. A solemn reminder that some legacies, no matter how deeply buried, never truly die. And as Eli closed the journal and stood beneath the watchful stars, a cold wind stirred once more, carrying with it the faintest whisper of a promised sand, a warning that the harvest of ashes might one day return.